Looping. So many people think it's just running around objects to win and stall the killer, when in reality this is just the surface. This guide will be teaching you everything about looping. Not just sprint when the killer is nearby and don't hit 0 stamina, this video goes extremely into detail and I would highly suggest you be accustomed to the game before watching this. This video has many sections. Feel free to skip to them if needed, but I would suggest not to, as it starts simple and it gets much more complicated. Basically, you'll be very confused on later. With that out of the way, let's start with what is looping. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, join my Discord down below. Now that we have set this foundation, there are many, and I mean many ways to improve this. On-hit speed boost. Your on-hit speed boost is when you take damage to survivor, you get a speed boost. This is to make gaining distance from a killer much easier. This section is really brief as it's really a reminder that taking damage to speed away, especially on a high HP character or a character that can self-heal, is oftentimes worth it if you need to do it. Do not panic and use the speed boost from getting hit to run away. Corner cutting. Corner cutting is turning a corner as tight as possible. Why is this useful? Well, it's just simple math. The tighter you turn, the more distance you shave off. Here's Bobbert. He wants to loot this rock. The caveat is that this rock has many sharp turns on it. Without proper corner cutting, you can see how fast the killer catches up. Here's Bobbert after watching this video. The corners are being cut perfectly, maximizing the potential distance on the killer. You'll go into distance more later. Anyways, the point is cutting corners reduces the time it takes to get to the next part of your loop. Without it, the killer can catch up to you very fast, assuming they're doing the same thing. This applies to literally every single loop in the game, not just rocks, keep that in mind. These tips are good and all, but how do you even start a loop? Check spots. What is a check spot? A check spot is a point where you can see all possible ways a killer can reach you. A classic check spot is this. A check spot could be as simple as that, or something a bit more complicated like this. One has a ton of good sight lines, making it easy to see the killer and where they come from, while the other one is not only lacking sight lines, but is very small generally. The purpose of a check spot is to see what way the killer runs towards you, so you can run the opposite way. The bigger the check spot, the better. This is so the killer has a bigger object to go around to reach you, compared to a small check spot in which they can catch up fairly fast. Oftentimes, check spots can also be loops, but not all the time, such as this drop down in glass houses. You check spot for the killer, once seen, then you can run away. The thing is though, you can't loot this certain check spot though, as you'll be repeatedly falling down and again and losing lots of distance. Now something that ties hand in hand with check spotting though would be reaction times. At first it seems kind of vague. Why would my reaction speed matter in a chase? And that's because it doesn't. It matters at the start of your chase, aka your chase starter. A chase starter is simply how you start getting chased. Pretty simple, right? For example, this right here is the bad chase starter. Bobbert has yet to react to the killer. The longer it takes to react, the more distance the killer gains upon Bobbert. You can see they now reacted, but the killer has already closed so much distance on said survivor. Now we have Bobbert after this video. The moment he even sees a pixel of the killer, he runs in the opposite direction. Reaction time is a huge factor in this. The faster you can see and react to the killer's presence and run the opposite direction, the more distance you will have from said killer. This sounds simple, and it really is, but this little trick is heavily underutilized and very important. Now here's another situation where reaction times are key, and that would be double backing. Double backing is when the killer backtracks in order to cut you off and close the distance. For example, Bobbert is getting chased and all of a sudden, the killer goes the opposite way and hits him fast. The counter to this is simply reacting to their movement fast. If they double back one way, you do the exact same thing. Doing this will make the killer waste their stamina in an attempt to mind game you to go back. Oftentimes, double backing is not effective for the killer to do, especially in big loops that are very open. Smaller loops, however, are where double backing is most used. Some loops are bigger, but because of the bad line of sight they can have, you can easily get double backed on. Double backing becomes very dangerous in these scenarios. Sometimes the loop is both small and with bad line of sight. Once it gets to that point though, seeing the killer and running in the opposite direction isn't always viable, as it's oftentimes too late. After all, there's only so much you can see, and sometimes you're caught off guard. If only there was a way to fix this. Sound. Sound is one of the most important things to be listening to during a chase. Most people associate sound with listening for when the killer uses a certain ability, but what you should be listening to the most is footsteps. Footsteps are extremely OP in Forsaken, as they grant you literal wall hacks on your opponent. When the killer is unseen, you don't want to run into them. You have to listen to where they are. For example, are they coming to my left or are they coming to my right? Listen closely. They're coming to my right. Now you can run preemptively before you even see them. Without footsteps, you have to just wait for the killer to show themselves, and with how small this check spot is right here, if the killer starts running at you with full stamina and you aren't already out of there, you're dead. Here's another scenario. I could hear the killer coming up the stairs and run, or I could just wait until I see the killer to run. You can clearly see one person runs away way earlier than the other, which allows more distance to be made. Listening to footsteps can improve your chase stars like in the said scenarios. Speaking of which, remember when I said how reaction speed matters in your chase starter? Well, if you can react fast to the sound of footsteps instead of seeing the killer, you can get insane amounts of distance even earlier than before. Speaking of which, distance isn't as simple as it seems. In fact, it's the most complicated of this list. Distance. Oh boy. Where do I begin? Distance is the measurement of how far you are away from something. In this case, the killer. That's it. But what makes it so complicated? That would be how to maximize your distance. An easy way to maximize distance is the chase stars I talked about earlier, or just simply staying away from the killer or looping around the big object. But what if the killer waits for all their stamina to regen at the loop, trying to negate the distance you can obtain? And this is also where complications start to arise. Loop spot chaining, probably the highlight of the video and also what every other video will never tell you. What is the difference between someone looping this wall right here by itself, or someone looping the wall combined with the rest of the map such as the cave area, or behind this wall even? The difference is in distance. When chased around a loop, if a killer is in need of stamina, oftentimes they go in front of the loop to regain all their stamina. This is because they are trying to block off your exit all while they replenish their stamina. A huge mistake I see happen from 90% of the players is that they will wait to regain their stamina too, as if it's some sort of waiting game where both of you are in a standoff. When in reality, there are countless loops that you can go to instead of just waiting for the killer. Here's what I mean. This is Finley, Bobbert's brother. Finley is regaining all his stamina in order to catch up to Bobbert and Chase. What Finley doesn't know is Bobbert can loop chain. While Finley regains stamina, Bobbert switches loop spots to one that creates even more distance than the original one. This forces Finley into a dilemma. Originally, he only had enough stamina to chase someone on the previous loop, but with the newly switched to loop, he needs to regain all his stamina again to have a fighting chance. Does he either A, chase Bobbert into this loop even though he will be down stamina and Bobbert will even have more distance from him, or B, does he go in front of the loop to regain all his stamina a second time? Most times, it's always the latter, aka B. What makes this good for Bobbert, however, is instead of the killer having to regen his stamina the full once, he now has to do it twice because of him using his distance to switch to another loop farther than the previous. Generally, this just stalls the timer, and this example is even the best. Not to mention, you don't have to do this when the killer is at full stamina. In fact, it is even safer to do this while the killer is regaining stamina, as it ensures you can't get chased while trying to perform the chain. Now Bobbert and Finley are in underground war. Finley wants to regain all his stamina in order to chase Bobbert. Instead of letting that happen, Bobbert just runs away in the opposite direction of Finley to a spot where he can get a nice chase starter away from Finley. Does Finley either chase him with all the distance he already has, knowing that he's not going to catch up, or just wait at the front of the loop to regain all his stamina back? The best choice is to regen all your stamina back to finally be able to chase Bobbert. This cycle can continue until you are cornered with nowhere to go. You could potentially even loop spot chain up to 4 times or greater, causing a huge pain and constantly making the killer wait for their stamina back. The best map in the game for loop spot chaining is Coolkid. If you are looping the house and the killer regains his stamina here, go to the booth area. Killer is regaining his stamina here, go to the truck. Killer is regaining his stamina here, go to the red building. This technique is very much more complicated because you have to think on the fly for every map. But it gets even more complicated. I said you can loop spot chain until you're cornered with nowhere to go, but what if that does happen? Dead zones. Dead zones are outskirts of the map or areas where there is nowhere to go. Typically there is a small loop there or not any loop. In the case that there is not any loop, you're kinda dead, so let's just hope there's a loop. You want to stay away from dead zones, as you can't loop spot chain with them typically. The whole principle of loop spot chaining is to use your distance to go to another loop spot, but because you're cornered, running to another loop immediately will just let the killer cut you off, and you'll die because they have the stamina advantage. So what do? Well, this is a lose-lose scenario, but you can still play it very well. This goes back to chase starters. Getting as much distance once you start getting chased is key. Usually, I would say not to wait for the killer to get all their stamina back, but here you have to. Once the killer starts to chase you, it's crucial you don't get double backed on. This is because most dead zones actually have really small loops. You also must maintain a good chase starter. More often than not, you will take a hit, but using the on-hit speed boost survivors get, eating 1 to 2 hits will result in you getting away. Point is, don't go to these dead zones, but if you have to, don't feel bad about it. It is better to dead zone yourself from loop chaining than to loop the same loop and let the killer kill you from getting all their stamina back. Despite the name of dead zones, not all are actually bad. This right here is a dead zone. You can't go anywhere and you're trapped. But despite it being a dead zone, it's still a good loop. Speaking of which, what loop spots should you loop? Loop spots. It is important to know what loop spots are good in Forsaken, not just for general looping, but in case you need to chain back and forth between some. I am not here to tell you every good loop, but know that longer loops that have good sightlines are typically the best. They're even better if it has a spot that allows for easy loop chaining, such as the cool carnival house. Camera settings. This one is also extremely important, but I didn't know where to put it. Holding shift even while standing still makes the game realize you're about to sprint, which also increases your field of view. If your field of view isn't max, please max it now. This is good as it lets you simply see much more, such as beyond walls or even over walls. Another tip which I highly recommend is going into settings, camera mode, and turning on camera toggle. This makes it so whenever you right click you turn to this weird shift lock thingy that doesn't lock your avatar. Anyways, point is your camera also moves a tiny bit higher, and pair that with holding shift you can see a lot higher. Just camera toggle alone makes looping things like the rock and glass houses so much easier. Better visibility on the killer means you get double back less and you can keep it more distance. If there is something players should have bettered though, it would be positioning. Positioning is something I see always done horribly. Positioning can vary tons depending on your killer, so let me instead give you some general rules for positioning that can apply to all killers. The low health positioning, for low players, is when you should be on a strong check spot ready to loop and loop chain at a moment's notice. Keeping an eye on where the killer is and what he is doing from said check spot is key, as well as listening to footsteps. Oftentimes, even if you're not low, this is great positioning as it's generally just harder for the killer to get you. The helper position, usually for two-time guest and Shaletsky, is when the teammate is trying to help out the survivor in chase. You want to hover around the killer and chase survivor in order to use your abilities to help out, but also positioning yourself in the middle of chase can lead to taking unnecessary damage or straight up being able to be swapped to. The biggest issue I see in positioning is survivors doing this hovering technique even when nobody's being chased, or when the teammate doesn't even need help. Oftentimes the killer will just regain all their stamina, and instead of chasing the survivor they were chasing, they chase you. Without proper tracking of the killer's stamina, you can easily be switched on. More on that later. Keep in mind the lower the killer's stamina gets, the closer you can get as it becomes increasingly harder to swap to you with their low amount of stamina. Lastly, we have the on cooldown positioning. Usually Chance, Elliot, Taft, Builder, Medusa Car. This positioning isn't really staying next to the killer, but instead just looking at what's happening, ready to jump in up close or use your abilities from a safe distance. This ensures you can't get swapped while also giving your teammates massive benefits. Looking at you, Dusakar. Positioning isn't just about where you're standing, but why and what you and your team gains from it. Now let's move on to stamina counting. Stamina counting is a technique and, you guessed it, tracks how much stamina a killer has left. This is helpful for many cases. Knowing how much stamina the killer has can determine when you use ability or not. For example, I see tons of players using their stuns and abilities even though the killer wasn't even going to catch up to them if they kept running. Or the opposite, not using your abilities at all due to thinking that they won't catch up. Now how do you stamina track? You really just feel it with time. Just know killers drain 9.5 stamina a second, round that to 10, and count the seconds, and in due time you won't even have to count anymore. After 11 seconds of running, you can be assured that they have basically no stamina left. Or after 6 seconds, they have a tiny bit less than half of their stamina left. Pressure, not the game, has all to do with the abilities of your character, with some exception. It is a process in which you or the killer shouldn't do something due to a force that is controlled or by an external one. To put it simply, you can't do something because if you do, you'll be in a bad situation. For example, a killer might be afraid to use walk speed override as it could easily be blocked or punished if missed. The same can be for a survivor. A survivor might also be afraid to slash a John Doe as they can parry it and get a massive speed boost. Pressure also applies to many other things, such as looping. Furthermore elaborated in Killer Specifics. This one's pretty long, so bear with me. Certain killers without a doubt affect looping, most notably John Doe, but we will cover them all. John Doe has constant pressure on loops due to him being able to trap them with his spikes or completely negate them with his footprint. This makes this whole guide tricky against him as he can disable loops and slash or loop chaining. It is more than ever important to get good chase stars against John Doe and try to loop small but manageable areas. It is best to try to loop middle areas if possible, as they are the hardest to spike trap. Keep in mind John Doe has a wind up to all his abilities, so making distance is really easy to get on him. The only issue is getting trapped. Be aware of footprints and potential areas a good spike trap can be used on, loop chain whenever applicable, but do not dead zone yourself against the John Doe. Against other killers it can slide with taking a lot of damage, but a good John Doe can just straight up kill you if the dead zone is bad enough. Slasher is a tricky case in the fact loop chaining can be negated completely. You know how I said they need to wait for their stamina to go back to full again? Well, they actually don't have to because Raging Pace gives them a second stamina bar, so it's actually just more worth it to send it, use Raging Pace, and then just try to kill you. The key here is distance. Distance against Slasher is more important than any other killer, as there's no good way to catch up to good distance as Slasher. And if you do have enough distance, using Raging Pace immediately for the Slasher would actually just be a waste of the ability, and that in return forces them to close the gap before using Raging Pace. Basically, they have to play by your rules. Coolkid has two things, Walk Speed Override and Minions. Walk Speed is very difficult to deal with, so I'd suggest looping in areas with a lot of bumps that make it hard to walk speed. For example, this Pirate Bay loop. Also realize that in most loops there is a straight line, which makes it easy to hit walk speed. In that case, try not to have low stamina around the Coolkid, as they can hit you with walk speed very easily. And if you do get hit instantly, look for your next loop spot, as often it knocks you far back. Don't forget the fact Coolkid can use walk speed to gain some distance on you in order to easily catch up. Make sure to run the opposite direction that they crash your walk speed override, as well as saving stamina for when they do use walk speed for distance. Even without objects to crash on, Coolkid can still walk speed for distance, albeit needing a lot of distance. For minions, just simply have someone take them away or kill them, but in a one-on-one it's completely different. You always get caught off with minions in a one-on-one, so you need to be non-stop loop chaining. Make sure you use all of the map to get away from minions. If you need to, dead zone yourself, and it means that you're far from minions. Once minions are despawned, you can go ahead and loop whatever you want. 1x doesn't have much to it, just try not to loop in very open areas, as entanglement hitting you will lead to severe damage. Just know that dodging mass isn't always the play. Sometimes if you have the HP to tank, you can just keep running for distance when they use it. You can either dodge it by accident or get hit, but because you kept running for distance, they still can't catch up to you to be in M1 range. Sixer's cannon fodder. Out of every killer in the game, Sixer struggles the most to catch up the distance, so abuse that. Even with the arsenal of speed abilities, in a one-on-one it is still extremely hard to catch up. In a setting with a lot of players though, he can farm blood and easily use Blood Hunt with Infernal Cry to run you down. Just make sure to stay very far away from him in Blood Hunt. Nosferatu is Nos. Literally just do what you do with all the killers, but account not looping too much in the open, as he has blood hooks similar to entanglement. Don't forget to count the pressure his traps have, so he's like a semi-John Doe but really bad. Besides that, he is just like everyone else. Lastly, we have Noli. He is more complicated than you'd think. His Void Rush can create massive stamina gains on you, even more than Coolkid. The best counter to this is to not loop spots Void Rush can get good turns and distance on. This is easier said than done though, because a good Noli, no matter what, can get a good Void Rush to close the distance and be up in stamina. With good teamwork, however, you can negate the stamina Noli gain this Void Rush very easily and continue to loop the spot you were on, knowing that Void Rush is on cooldown and they can't catch up. Keep in mind, Nova is a tool and not directly a damage source. Sometimes a Nova can be thrown to make you run away from said area / loop in order for you to waste stamina. There will be times eating the damage Nova deals is actually the best play. And that wraps up the looping guide. This will tell you everything you need to know to be an unstoppable force. With just this guide alone, you can loop pro killers for minutes to newbies for entire rounds. Keep in mind, this is a team game too, so knowing how to loop in order to protect yourself isn't just the point, but in order to put the killer in a spot where you are unchaseable. You could even say unkillable. I played this game nearly since it was released non-stop and never actually made a looping guide. What separates this guide from others is the fact that I don't assume you're a newbie looking for basic tips, but an intermediate player just looking to get better. Not to mention, I straight up tell you stuff that a lot of other guys just don't do. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed my guide. If so, tell me what you liked and comment on other tips and tricks that you would like to know. Join my Discord server and I'll see you guys later. Peace out, y'all. Nah, I changed the Albert for you. Alright, 3, 2, 1, go. Damn, why the fuck did Penelope start so fast? Alright, to regain stamina. Okay, let's retry this one. Okay, and Penuffle, you need to walk to like make it seem like you have no stamina. On loop. 3, 2, 1, go.
Finley's out for blood, dude.
Oh my gosh, nah, go back.
Oh my God.
Go! Go, Bobber! Yes, now check spot that, check spot. Yo, no, come back. I meant hover the Coolkid, not hover Discord.
Oh, hover the Coolkid?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Like you're like dumb sentinels. Bad positioning. 3, 2, 1, go. What is that? What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you hugging him? He just rubbed his face against his chest, bro. What?
Yo.
Bro.
That is not Elliot.
You finish me off with the lunge? Oh my gosh, bro. What is that?
That move is
What
so
is that?
ass.
That move is fucking horrible, bro. Holy fuck. I'm literally
It just doesn't
standing.
work at close range.
It just is so, it moves so shit, bro.